Elle, I hate to start the pod off on like such a serious note, but like for real, be honest with me. Like, tell me the truth. We've been friends for so long. Is Marcus Freeman that handsome in person?
Oh my God.
I think that's a yes.
Can you see the drool coming out of the side of my mouth?
I just thought that was a new lip gloss. Yeah.
Welcome to the Elle Duncan Show, presented by AT&T. Wow, look at us. We're on the up and up.
Ring,
Hey,
ring.
AT&T. Man, we love having you as a partner.
Come on.
You know what I
Call me
mean?
up.
You allow me constant contact. You are my service provider for my cell phone. Sometimes that's a good and bad thing. Sometimes I don't. I wish you didn't have such great service.
Yeah, for real. You're a little bit too available, Elle.
Yeah.
Except for me sometimes when I
Yeah.
text you. But you know what? That's for another
Yeah.
topic. That's for
Well, that's
another day.
perfect. AT&T knows that when Gary texts, the Wi-Fi
That's
gets a little scrambled.
that's hurtful.
We don't, it's fine.
Welcome back from South Bend. Hey, your prediction didn't turn around to bite you in the butt this time.
You know what? We finally broke the game day curse. For those of you that don't know, myself, Andre, and Shanae, for the previous weekends, every time we all had a unanimous decision on who would win, that team went on to lose. The last few weeks, we have gone with the favorite. We went with South Carolina, who had won 71 games in a row at home to win. And of course, UConn beats them bad. And then we went with Notre Dame to beat North Carolina State. I don't know why I call them North Carolina State. They're just NC State. Um, and because they were the favorite, it was a 113 matchup. They ended up losing and then just kept losing. Last week, yesterday, Sunday, I don't know what day it is, Sunday, when we were at college game day, it was funny because one of the Louisville coaches, JP, the best, what up, girl, comes over to us and she goes before the show and she goes, I don't know who you're picking, but I hope you're all picking Notre Dame. And we were like, damn.
Uh,
Everyone knows our curse. She was like, because that's probably good for us if you're all picking Notre Dame. And we told her straight up, we're like, we are. We're all picking Notre Dame to
Straight
win this
up.
game, which is probably really good for you. But alas,
Correct.
finally, we broke that curse. Notre Dame does, in fact, beat Louisville. And pretty handedly. At first, it was close. It was very close. Louisville, had a puncher's chance because they've got really good guards, and Jeff Walsh always seems to get the best out of his team. They're playing really hard, especially of late. And of course, Notre Dame was on a bit of a slide, right? They'd lost to NC State, they had lost to Florida State. And then the regular season finale, you could just tell like we actually
Yeah.
felt bad for whoever they were going to play in that game because they were not happy. And at first, it looked like Notre Dame was sort of playing a little bit tight. And that's why we were like, uh-oh. And
Yeah.
then in the second half, they just asserted their will. Everybody started making buckets. They started hitting threes, which is something that they weren't doing well in their losses this season. And so they wrapped things up and as such got a co-share of the regular season ACC title along with NC State. And now, baby, it is conference tournament time. But we had,
Championship week starting
yeah,
today, Tuesday. Let's get it. Hey,
that's
what was
right.
Notre Dame attributing their struggles to when you were there and talking to them?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit to Hannah Hidalgo before the show or, during the show rather from the
Yeah.
court. And basically she was saying they need to get back to their game, but more importantly, they got to get back to playing defense. And they hadn't given up ACC opponents against Notre Dame were only averaging like 58 points per game.
Yeah.
Their defense is legit. Everybody talks about their star guards, and obviously they should be. And they've got a great big three with, Sonia Citron and Hannah Hidalgo and Olivia Miles. But like really, their defense is what has seen them have so much separation. Their defense was letting them down. And so they said that. And we certainly saw that. Louisville has very formidable backcourt too. And they were able to keep them in under control and under wraps. But it was still, one of those games that like Notre Dame needed. Now,
Yeah.
they should have beat Louisville. Louisville, really, really good team, but like Notre Dame has championship aspirations, right? And they needed to get that win, and they do. But with Champ Week on the horizon, we had a lot of stuff actually that happened on Sunday. Like Notre Dame went as planned, but some other teams did not exactly go as planned. In fact, we had six teams that were in Thursday's top 16 reveal, the final reveal before we get obviously the full bracket, and Selection Sunday is coming up. But we had upsets everywhere. Like Tennessee losing to sub 500 Georgia was the worst loss of the day.
Hmm.
Point blank, period. Tennessee gets boat raced by Kentucky in the game before. They're riding high after that UConn win. People are going, uh-oh, could Tennessee make some noise? And, you lose to Kentucky. There's no shame in that. Georgia Amore is fantastic. Kenny Brooks is as good as they come. And that program has had such an incredible turnaround. And you know I love my dogs, but Georgia is not a team you lose to. Like that is
Should
a
not have won
bad
that game.
that's a bad loss. Virginia got the best of North Carolina in Chapel Hill. They didn't have Alyssa Utsby, that matters. And then Ole Miss beats LSU, who did not have Flau'jae Johnson. And then they announced afterwards Flau'jae would not be available for the entire championship tournament or the conference tournament either. So the next time we're going to see Flau'jae Johnson is in the NCAA tournament. And that means it is going to be a very tough road for LSU in this championship tournament because we saw what it looked like when they don't have their big three of Michaela Williams and Anissa Morrow and Flau'jae Johnson,
Mhm.
and they're not the same team.
And famously, we have a new Big Ten champion, and that kind of came by way a little bit interesting. And Elle, I remember famously saying the last time we had the pod, I was like, it's Juju's Player of the Year to lose. Remember when I famously said, "Hey, Lauren Betts is great, but it's going to be Juju going off for
You
30."
did.
It
Mhm.
still gives me pause, Elle. And by the way, UCLA, two losses this season, and those two losses have only been against USC. I like how JuJu Watkins, she elevates her game when she's playing UCLA. She averages 32 points per game in the five meetings against them. However, Elle, this has sort of been like the thread all season with me. She went for 30. One other player, Kiki Iriafen, had double digits. Everybody else, four, three, two. I understand superstars can take you far in the tournament, but when it's all or nothing, that kind of gives me a little bit of pause.
Well, I mean, it would normally if that person wasn't Juju Watkins. I mean, I do think that that was a concern, especially a few weeks ago with people that were like, man, if a team figures out how to stop Juju, right, and you have to put it on everybody else, how's that going to work, right? Like, is it going to work? But the thing is that like if a team beats Juju Watkins is like the big caveat there because they can't and they haven't been able to. And on top of that, USC's playing really good defense too, right? Like their defensive intensity is picked up. I do think Kiki Iriafen has sort of finally found their way. We've talked a lot with Dre and Chene this year about the fact that it takes some time for these pieces to mold, right? Like USC lost a couple of pieces from last year and they bring in these transfers and Talia Van Olhoffen and Kiki Iriafen, and it just took longer than maybe we thought for all of them to gel and sort of figure out how they work off each other and the dynamic. And I think we're seeing that against a team like UCLA. It's a really good matchup for them. They took Lauren Betts in that first matchup, and she had like a decent stat line, 15 points or whatnot, but she was a non factor. They bested her even more on Saturday night. Like
Yeah.
it wasn't particularly close. UCLA snuck back at it a little bit, but then USC, ended up getting some separation towards the end. I mean, they just absolutely dominated them. But again, it was Juju who, in the first half, who had 23 over 30 points came in the first half. And then it was Kiki Iriafen in the second half, right? So if you can do that and you can play defense, you can beat a whole lot of teams. And I think ultimately what that matchup on Saturday did was lock up a couple of things, and we'll get to that in a minute. But it also, I think, has people very concerned about UCLA. I know they only have two losses and they're both to USC,
Hmm.
but it just, if you take Lauren Betts out of the equation and she kicks
Yep.
it, the one of the beautiful parts about Lauren Betts is not just her post presence, but her ability to dish it back out
Yeah.
to her teammates to make buckets. And that I think is a question for a lot of people going into the tournament. Like when Lauren Betts is double teamed, and if they play someone that has some size and they double team her and they're able to take her out of the equation, like USC has been able to do both times, someone's got to make those shots. And like you want it to be Kiki Rice, but like somebody has got to make those shots. And we didn't see that against USC either time, which is ultimately why they ended up losing.
A little bit upset that you didn't use my line that I gave you on game day. The key keys to victory
Yeah. The
was
Kiki
Irief
to victory.
and
Well,
Rice. Did you expect there to be because Lauren Betts second in the Big Ten in double doubles, and you're like, oh, double double, 20 points, 15 boards. But like it was a baby double double against USC, 11 points, 10 boards. So you're expecting more from your horses.
Well, I mean, you need Lauren Best to score more than that. She's the leading
Correct.
scorer on the team. Like she needs to be able to score more. She's 6'7". Like she's gonna get the rebounds. Not all double doubles are created equal, right? Like, especially in and not in that matchup in particular. But we'll see. Like I do think that we'll probably see that matchup again
Yes. You'll see it
in
for
the
the third
Big
time
Ten
this
tournament.
season.
Exactly. We'll see it for the third time this season in the Big Ten tournament for sure. And man, just for goodwill and morale, does UCLA need to have a better showing in that one for sure?
Do you? Okay. We're listen, y'all. We're going conference to conference, championship week to championship week. Last one I need to settle on. Are you fair or foul on, foul, because we're talking South Carolina. Sometimes they write themselves. Fair or foul on Greg Sankey deciding the one seed in the SEC tournament by way of coin flip due
Yeah, that's
to equal resumes in Texas, South Carolina. I, for one, am in favor of this, L.
every time I
It's the
see this,
made for
I think of
TV
like
event.
Friday Night Lights. Remember when they had to coin flip to see like, where the game was going to be or whatever?
The only thing that I think I wish would have been different is if you take you add a little bit more dramatics and let the coin hit the ground.
Oh, and then like zoom in on it and do all
Let it
that.
roll, let it roll, let it, and
Yeah.
then what does it settle on? And of course, if you're parachuting in, you don't know what we're talking about. Texas, South Carolina, Greg Sankey, the commissioner of the SEC, had to flip a coin to decide who the one seed is because resumes are equal. He had a coin, one side Texas, one side South Carolina, and it was a made for TV event, L.
So before the coin flip, Dawn was a little frustrated, I think, that it was going to come down to a coin flip. She basically, remarked like, you knew that like as the SEC got tougher with Oklahoma and Texas coming out, that there'd probably be more competition. Like, how did you guys not think about more metrics? And that's where I'm at. I'm like, bruh, that should be the last resort once you get through a series of metrics. Like, it shouldn't just be the head to head and the overall conference record. That's literally what it came down to.
Uh-huh.
You could go to a million different metrics after that. Strength of schedule, strength of opponents. Like you could have hit a few more markers before you got to coin flip. Like personally. And I
I see it
think
the other way
like
around. I think coin flip should be the first option.
that's wild. It just is like it's like 50
It's
50 flip of the coin. I don't love it. Honestly though, if South Carolina, if you had done additional metrics, South Carolina would have been the one seed anyway. So afterwards, Don sort of joked like, I love this coin flip thing just because it went their way, right? If you had looked at additional metrics, quad one wins, net wins, things like that, it would have probably gone to South Carolina. They've got more than Texas does. If you were going off of like vibes and recency, then absolutely Texas. I mean, they're the number one team in the country, but I think that like ultimately we'll see if they add a few more parameters before they have to get to a coin flip. You know what I kept thinking though as I'm watching them do that? I'm like, man, like how quickly does like who do you call when you're like, all right, I need a coin with a South Carolina logo on one side and a Longhorns logo on the other, and I need it quick. How quickly can you get that for us?
well,
Like
here's the
who's the
thing.
coin person?
Well, the thing about what people don't know about the SEC is yes, it's the Southeastern Conference, but it also doubles as a Securities and Exchange Commission. So actually, Greg Sankey, he's got connections everywhere.
Oh yeah.
So I'm sure he can call his friends at the Mint, to which the Coin Mint, there's one in Denver, there's one in Philly. So it doesn't take long for that to be sort of produced as a one-off and sent to him overnight. So Al, that's the least of my logistical issues with this. But I'm just saying I'm a favor of settling things the old-fashioned way. A duel, flipping a coin, as I think Jackson mentioned just now in the chat, rock, paper, scissors, because you can do
Oh,
best of
that
three
would have been
straight up, best of
fun.
five, best of seven. I mean, you can take this thing, you can do a straight up race, just a
Okay,
straight up
well,
race.
okay.
You tic tac
Don
toe.
talks about she has bad knees and she's not racing Vic Schaefer nowhere.
Well, I'm just saying there's different ways to settle it, but I'm not upset with how they
Ooh,
settled it.
they could do a baby race. You put one in the South Carolina jersey. I love baby races. They're so cute. They're so unpredictable. You don't know what the baby's gonna do. All the tactics the parents try to get to like lure the crawling babies to them to half court. I would be so into that. Do it at halftime of a game. A
Well,
baby race.
how about that race a couple of weeks ago in Memphis? It was one baby in particular, or was it Houston? It was one baby that just left the other babies in the
In the
dust,
dust. Yeah.
suckling on the teat of defeat.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
teat of defeat. Hell, that's a bit of a bar. Anyway,
That's
I
what
don't
you could
want to.
call it, the teat of defeat. And then you just plop a couple babies up. Honestly, like my son, if you would have held a donut in one of those races, he would have 100% smoked those babies for a donut. For a little powdered donut, he probably would have stood up for the first time and ran, if I'm being honest.
I mean, well, we know X Man he is the man.
He's healthy.
So that is what we are going to call it, thanks to AT&T. Oh, look at that. Look at that full circle moment.
Look at that. So we got the new AP poll, which will be, I think we'll get one more AP poll before the selection Sunday, which is not this Sunday, but the Sunday after. Is it the 15th?
Oh,
The
yeah.
16th?
Okay, hold on. I have a question about that. It was in SportsCenter yesterday. Paige Bueckers senior night at Gamble. It was awesome, cool, but she still has a year of eligibility. They've already retired her number.
Yeah.
They gave her her senior night plaque. She hasn't set, and listen,
She's not coming back. She has not like explicitly said I'm not coming back.
correct,
But every time
correct,
someone like asks her about her future, she's like, I can't wait to play in the W next year. And this time
correct.
last year, she announced on senior night she was going to come back. Like she let it be very
Yeah.
clear that she was going to be coming back, so she wouldn't be doing any celebrating. They wouldn't hang her jersey in the rafters if she was
No, no,
coming.
no, no. And I understand that, but because we are in the day and age of where we are with athletics, this is generally one of those things that's spelt out. It is one of those things that we build up and listen, we're guilty of it too. Hey, we did it with Diana Taurasi the entirety of, from the end of last season up until, she officially announced it. Like, where's she going to do it? Will she do it? We haven't got official word, so let's not assume. Obviously, her getting her plaque in stores when they just beat Creighton, I was like, whoa, wait a minute. She still has a year of eligibility. She's saying thank you, but wouldn't that be one hell of a thing for her to do? Be like, by the way, guys, I'm coming back.
No, no,
Yeah,
she did.
it was just interesting. It was just
She's already a grad student. She's working on her master's. It was funny too because when I did the Sarah Strong feature and I was talking with her, I said something about somebody being old. She's like, "Well, I'm old too. I'm 23." Like she's ready. Like she's 23 years old. She's been at UConn for a long time. The medical
yeah,
red shirts because of the injuries. She's been there for a bit. She's ready to move on. 2020 is when she showed up to UConn. So
yeah,
it's been some years, and she's going to move on. I think the interesting one is AZ Fudd. She participated in senior night too, but she did admit that she doesn't know if she's going to come back out. Now, I asked some people like, if you're AZ, do you come back a year? Do you try to like, beef up your resume even more? And frankly, with her injuries, um, I think that like if you can finish a season healthy, something that she hasn't been able to do for some time, you run. Like you head to the league right now
yeah.
and you get out. You just don't want to tempt fate when it comes to injuries, especially because she's just been so snake bit by them. So, but we'll certainly see. Like if Paige and AZ move on, it's certainly the end of an era. It's Sarah Strong's team officially,
Yeah.
once that happens. But I think UConn's really interesting. Like, we're going to learn more about some people during Champ Week. We're not going to learn anything about UConn because they're going to run through the Big East tournament like they always do. But I posed that question to Drea when we were on College Game Day, and I was like, is that concerning at all? That like everybody else is going to be like South Carolina, Texas, they're going to be tested in their conference tournaments, right? Like USC, UCLA, they're going to be tested. The ACC, they're going to be tested. Notre
Yeah.
Dame, NC State and UConn's not. And is that concerning? And she looked at me and she goes, well, it's never been a problem before. Like they've been in the Big East for a long time and they've
Hmm.
run through the Big East for a long time. And it does not portend bad things necessarily for the tournament.
I
They
know
just
that word.
always find a way to step up when they need to. I'm not worried about them at all. I do think that because they haven't been in the news cycle since beating South Carolina a few weeks ago, there are people that are sort of like, oh, yeah, UConn. They're number 3 right now in the rankings. You got Texas and then USC, UConn, UCLA, and South Carolina is your top 5. Notre Dame falls from 1 to 6 after losing those 2 games last week before finally, beating Louisville. But yeah, like I think, there's people that are sort of like, what about TCU, right? Like with the right matchups, they've got size. They've got Haley Van Lith, who's playing out of her mind. They beat Baylor to get the Big 12 championship. We sort of played this game of like, who's Tampa ready, who's not. LSU is one of those teams that we had some disagreements with Chene and Andrea. They weren't sure that they were Tampa ready. Obviously, Flage's injury is completely contingent on that. And I think apart from that, like you look at those top 7 teams, and we've talked about this, like the top 7 teams for the most part, they've moved around, but they've
Hmm.
all been the top 7 teams. Like LSU did fall out of the top 7. And so NC State's the one that found their way like in there. So before last week, before this new ranking came out, those top 7 teams had moved, but they were all pretty stable in terms of the top 7 teams, right? Like they moved positioning within the top
Yeah.
7. So I do think LSU, like, they end up losing to Ole Miss. Again, they didn't have Flage, but they do have some bad losses. And I do think that in terms of sort of the teams that could make some noise, I would say that like when you're filling out your bracket, guys, like the folks that are 1 through 7 right now are probably who you should be identifying for Elite Eight, Final Four,
Yeah.
outlooks because between Texas, USC, UConn, UCLA, South Carolina, Notre Dame, and NC State, it could give them some problem.
You're talking about teams like LSU with bad losses. I would much rather be in UConn's position with easy give me wins. Do you know what I'm saying? Than being like a team that's tested just for the sake of being tested, but has a couple ugly losses. I don't know. I'd rather be a team going into the tournament, think about don't stink as opposed to a team questioning my
What?
like LSU
Really? You
like
don't
playing.
want to be tested before you go to the tournament where you literally there's no room for error?
No, I'm not saying not tested. It's not like UConn's going to be some newcomer to this tournament or having high expectations or targets on their back. But I feel like when you go out, when you used to be Club L. Oop, I dropped the government name.
Yeah, you did.
Um, you always felt better when you were stepping out on a weekend after you got a little gym session, you got your little sweat on, you got a nice shower, and you got a nice meal, and then you stepped out. You felt good, you felt confident because you put yourself in a position. Easy wins throughout the day. You weren't stepping out after you didn't shower, didn't have a nice meal, you had a raggedy outfit on. Nobody wants to step out into a big moment. You're drinking that tea like that's in fact how you used to step out. Elle, I don't know.
But that's not the same. Like stepping into the NCAA tournament's not like stepping into a club. It's like stepping into war. And I don't give a what I look like or how fresh I smell if I'm going to go into the trenches.
I'm just
If
saying
I'm about to
things.
have, if I'm about to go to war, I want the dude next to me that looks like he's already been in a war. I want the guy that looks battle tested. I want the one that looks a little bit raggedy, the one with rough hands, the ones with some wounds. I don't want the fresh GQ cover boy. That doesn't make me feel better. That doesn't make me feel like I have my odds are better of survival. I want
Oh
the
yeah?
dude that looks insane, the
Oh
Bush
yeah?
guy. I want him.
I bet you were feeling pretty good last week when Mr. GQ Marcus Freeman was sitting on that desk.
Whew.
Better take the-
My God, I would go to war with
All
him.
I'm just saying
Yes.
is I would rather go into a position like that where I knew that like the five riding with me, my team, my bench, we were going into a position confident because we had just got done taking care of business as opposed to having some of our strengths be tested and we kind of go into this thing with a couple questions as opposed to more answers. I know there's
Wow.
people rocking with me
Wow.
listening.
No, no. I want everyone listening to understand what Gary basically just said. Gary basically just said before, like, if he was going to enlist, before he went to war, he wouldn't want basic training. He would want a spa trip. He would
No,
want to go to the spa and
that's
get
not what I said.
pampered. That's what you just said. He'd want to get pampered. He'd want to get a facial. He'd want to feel beautiful
Yeah.
before he got shipped off to war. That's what he said.
Let me.
I would prefer to go to basic training. I would prefer to go to Marine training where
Hmm.
they like actually simulate war a little bit for you
Yeah.
so that you were more prepared for what you were about to face. I don't want my soldier coming straight from the Mandarin Oriental Spa.
I'm just saying that
Sorry.
I'd rather get beautified before things get ugly. You
That
feel
makes
me?
sense. That makes a ton
I'm
of
just
sense
saying, do
coming
what
for
you got
you.
to do to build that confidence before you enter whatever dojo you're about to enter into. L is what I'm trying to say.
Gary's the guy. I've been watching Masters of Air recently. Really good too. I'm really into World War II. My grandfather was a Tuskegee Airman. There was, a Tuskegee Airman component to this show. But like, there would be these horns that would go off. You're watching
Mhm.
this, and Masters of the Air is all about just the bombers, and their journeys during World War II. And the alarm would go off, meaning like, get your to the situation room, right? Because we're
Yeah.
about to. Gary would be the guy that would be like, give me 1 second to put some pomade in. Just give me 1 minute.
Yeah.
I got 30 seconds left on this facial. And then as soon as I get my mask off, I'm
L.
there.
Look good, feel good, fly good.
Oh
That's what they
God.
say.
What is good is making a guarantee and praying like hell that it happens so that the internet doesn't dunk on you. I'm going to do that when the Elle Duncan show returns. Gary, we're back. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, it's
I'm
time.
ready for this. This is not going to backfire whatsoever.
It's time for the guarantee presented by AT&T. And I guarantee that JuJu Watkins is your National Player of the Year.
National Player of the Year, not just Conference Player of the Year.
All of them.
Okay. All right.
Wooden National Player of the Year. Give them all to JuJu. I think that she solidified that on Saturday. It was a three-woman race for a while between Hannah Hidalgo, Lauren Betts, and JuJu Watkins. Hannah Hidalgo chose probably the wrong time to have the worst stretch of her career in terms of shooting. Like she was shooting like 36% from the field in the 5 games previous to Louisville. And then in terms of a head-to-head matchup, if it's between Lauren Betts and JuJu Watkins, which is what the odds are telling us it is. Juju wins the head to head. I mean, she had 68 freaking points in those two combined games against UCLA, despite saying that she doesn't get extra motivated to play UCLA. We all laughed and called her a liar. We're like, you a lie. What? Because the results don't tell us that. I mean, she's played out of her freaking mind the last couple of weeks in those two big matchups. And so I don't think I am guaranteeing that JuJu Watkins is going to win National Player of the Year. Over 24 points per game, almost 7 rebounds per game, and over 3.5 assists per game. It really just speaks to herself. But on top of that, the impact that she has on that team and returning USC to a number 2 spot for the first time since like 10 years before she was born. All the reasons that I think she's going to end up getting this award.
Elle, I hear you. And here's the thing. I can't disagree with anything. I mean, you got me. You got me. I got nothing. I mean, you can't argue the numbers. You can't argue the impact. Yeah, take that one to the bank. Can I give you a guarantee?
Okay, please.
I guarantee you, while Juju has championship aspirations, everybody loves her for that reason. I guarantee you that America is gonna fall in love with Audi Crooks. I love her, dude. Iowa State's leading scorer. She's always so smiley. If you know Audi Crooks, you know she does all her damage in the paint. If you don't know who Audi Crooks is, listen, you're gonna get real familiar with her. Yeah, she's I don't know. I just like watching her.
People fell in love with Audie Crooks last year at the tournament if
Yeah.
they were unfamiliar with her game. And she was a dynamic freshman last year. You're right. She is not the same body type that we're used to sort of
Yeah.
seeing. And she embraces that. And she is like, what she's able to do is just absolutely incredible. And on top of that, you're right. She is the most jovial, bright,
hmm
sunny, wonderful woman who is such an inspiration to the young girls out there. And they're right. And her game is
I mean,
flawless.
she averages
So
a double double for Iowa State, and I mean they'll contest for the Big 12, but they'll definitely obviously get a ticket to the tournament. So I'm looking forward. I'm looking forward to Audie Crook's love.
yeah. And then all of the like somewhat and sometimes problematic references to Crooks when people are punning her name, but it's all in good fun. So let's just
Uh-huh.
take a deep breath this year. All right.
hmm
It's all in good fun. The cops love Audie Crooks. They
Did
love punning her name.
did
They
we just
love that.
agree on two back-to-back points?
I love that. Look, AT&T is bringing us together.
Hang up the
We're
phone. We can't get better than that.
100%. And with that, College Game Day is off to Greenville for the SEC Championship this week. You'll see the three of us, me, Andrea, and Shanae, holding down half times during the semis on Saturday. And then we'll have a full College Game Day at 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN before we get ready for the championship. I was actually going to make a guarantee that I knew would bite me in the ass. So I did not. I was going to say, I guarantee that the SEC championship is going to be South Carolina and Texas, but I'm gonna not do that because we tend to see an upset during champ
hmm
week, and I just don't want to be the person that did that. I'm gonna be forced to make picks at some point anyway, and I'll probably be wrong. So I'm gonna stick with my guarantee of Juju, and I'm just gonna just ride that out to the bank.
Gang, gang.
Watch us. We will see you next week on the show. We'll have another show for you guys on Tuesday. In the meantime and in between time, be good to each other, rate, review, subscribe, comment, do all that good stuff. And as always, thank you for watching The Elle Duncan Show, presented by AT&T.